I told you I had a Carrot 41 flawless diamond solitaire for $4.99, you'd be all over the phone. The phone lines would melt. But many are not aware of the beauty, the richness, the rarity, and the incredible value of the rarest Russian chrome dioxide. Look at the fiery green emanating from the heart of this stone. I've got to tell you here, combined with this super thick, heavy mounting of solid 14-karat gold, you've got swirling, swirling, swirling gold, and look at that deep penetrating green. Chromium, which gives this
swag that was really from Jesus and Mary Jane for.
Yes, very attractive. Well, and it stands to reason that it would be considered attractive by such a personable individual as yourself, because I am the wrong hero. I am always in the wrong place at the wrong time, and everything I do is wrong. And that basically is my superpower. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the Pork Chop Lounge, as though my welcoming them here has any bearing whatsoever on the case, since they have been here for at least an hour. So welcoming them is sort of a redundancy in a sense, since they would be here regardless of my having welcomed them or not. I'm the wrong hero, and I am a metaphor for America. Don't know what the fuck it means, but I like the sound of it, so I'll say it again. Because I hear you Earth people have to have things repeated 3 times before you understand them. I am a metaphor for America. I like the sound of that. I am a metaphor for America. Thanks for the hash, Uncle Walt. I know what it's like to be an American, because I too have come from a far-off place to seek my destiny in a totally indifferent land. For I am an alien. You want to make something of it? I will prove that I am an alien by showing you my license plates. This one says, "Get out of my way, Earth meat. I am the wrong hero." And this one says, "This mass of corrosion and diesel stench belongs to the wrong hero. I hate everybody, and everybody hates me." You know, I've been all over this great country, north, south, east, west, and let me tell you something. It felt so good when the federales took the handcuffs off so I could go to the bathroom. I'd like to discuss today the history of ethnic slurs in the United States. I guess it all begins with 1491. 1491, a date which will forever go down in history. 1491, the last good year for the Indians. Well, around the time of the 1500s, the Spanish conquistadors came. Now, some have said that the Spanish conquistadors were cruel and rapacious tyrants. Others, in their defense, have stated that the Spanish conquistadors were siesta-taking, paella-eating, sombrero-wearing, red wine-drinking hotheads with wicked sangria hangovers who weren't responsible for their actions because they were alcoholics. That Native American I just played alive, I should be in a 12-step program. I really should. Here, let me sell my helmet to him. Yes. Well, and then in the 1600s, the British came to North America. Now, the British were regarded by more than a few as snobbish, inbred, bulldog-loving, Henry VIII worshipping drunks with horsey teeth. This is what gets me. Anglicans, Anglicans, the only people in the world who are stupider than Catholics. Anglicans. I mean, really, you're an Anglican, you die, you go up to heaven, and you're a Catholic, and you die, and you go up to heaven. Now, who do the Catholics worship? Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Who do the Anglicans worship? Henry VIII, a bearded, savage glutton who killed 5 of his 8 wives. Whose side are you going to be on come Judgment Day? Jesus, our Lord, or Henry VIII? Step inside. Bend over, sailor. The sailor is home from the sea. Well, a lot of people felt that all the British really wanted to do was eat crumpets, drink tea, play cricket, carry umbrellas, wear pith helmets, and read Rudyard Kipling's Take Up the White Man's Burden. And yet, to be perfectly fair to the British, we still have very strong ties to the British Commonwealth, even to this day. Because, as we all know, the British will always resist tyranny until the last American is dead. And remember, there will always be in England as long as there's a Fort Knox. Well, in the 1700s, the French began their settlement of the North American continent. They bartered rather, with the Indians for furs, and the Indians preferred to trade with the French because they were fair-minded and didn't go around killing them in carload lots. But behind their backs, the Indians referred to the French as wine-slurping, breeze-stinking, snail-eating, tongue-kissing, syphilis-infested, pornography-reading, adulterous, incomprehensible philosophy-writing nitwits. Well, in the mid-1620s, the Dutch, of course, landed on Manhattan Island and purchased it for $24 worth of trinkets from the Indians. The shrewd bargainers, those Dutch. You know, those very same trinkets today would be worth, about $24, give or take. What were these trinkets anyway? What was in these trinkets, man? You know, it was like, chew on this. Whoa! So, in any event, the Dutch were known as shrewd bargainers who gave us the expressions Dutch courage, Dutch uncle, and Dutch oven, which actually has more than one meaning. If you ever had a big brother who liked to stick you under the blankets and hold your head down there. But, be that as it may, the Dutch were known as tulip-sniffing, butter-eating, Heineken-gulping, clog-wearing fatzos, whose eyes were crossed from perpetually staring at windmills, whose fingers were shriveled up from sticking them in dikes, and who did nothing but ice skate and get goofy from smoking hash and low dives all day long. Well, in about the 1740s, the Scotch came to the United States. Yes, the Scotch. Oh, that's really weird. The Doer Scotch were known by their neighbors as dress-wearing, whiskey-drinking, miserly skinflints. But to be perfectly fair to the Scotch, they invented whiskey, golf, and selfishness. 3 things without which no 20th century American businessman could do business. So, for the Scotch. In the 1840s, skipping up a piece, came the Irish potato famine, which was unfortunate because the Irish were forcibly torn from their miserable tenancy plots where they were forced to perform backbreaking labor for the benefit of tenant farm owners who basically didn't pay them doodly squat. When the Irish came to this country, they were the first universally despised minority, but they were not to be the last universally despised minority. In fact, many Americans looked at the typical Irishman of the day and said, Look at that bug-trotting, clay-pipe smoking, brick-throwing, shillelagh wielding, shamrock worshiping, blarney kissing, bomb throwing, prolo talking, fiddle playing, mandolin strumming, penny whistle tooting, Morris dancing, rock gut gulping, ale slurping, ether sniffing, leprechaun hallucinating, incomprehensible poetry writing, evil-tempered and grotesquely sentimental dipsomaniac. What's he doing here anyway? Well, in the 1870s, the Scandinavians came to this country. Now many saw these hardy people as miserable, big-boned ex-Vikings with big teeth who lived in their squalid hovels, eating raw, salted salmon, reading Hamlet by the light of whale-fat lamps, and feeling sorry for themselves. But if it weren't for the Scandinavians, then there would be no janitor in Archie comics. You know, remember Sven? Sven, the guy with the big mustache, always pushing a broom, smoking a pipe, saying things like, my name is Jan Johnson, I come from Wisconsin. I work in a lumber mill there. As I walk down the street, the people I meet say, what is your name? And I say, my name is Jan Johnson, I live in Wisconsin, etc., ad infinitum, ad nauseum. So, in the 1890s came an influx of Southern and Eastern Europeans. Whoa, Nelly, you thought the frog heads were bad. You thought the potato heads were kind of suck. Man, these guys, these cats, they were like out there, they were gone, they were just like, whoa! Notably, the Italians. Now, some saw the Italians as crooked cigar smoking, olive oil slurping, dagger wielding, mafia fearing, Pope worshipping, greasy, garlicky, spaghetti eating, sex crazed, emotional fascists. Others, in their defense, stated that they were born dictators whose biggest ambition was to bark incomprehensible orders at their betters. The Italians were known for resenting their fathers, adoring their mothers, driving their sons insane, and turning their daughters into sluts with big hair. Oh, I might want to mention that they hadn't won a war in 2,000 years. Just to put the icing on the cake. Well, this influx from Southern Europe also included the Greeks. Now, many derided the Greeks as bouzouki playing, ouzo drinking, baklava eating, olive munching, stuffed grape leaves slurping, pistachio crunching, sailor cap wearing, black-haired, bushy-eyebrow, tin-horn chiselers who reeked of sardines. Well, along with this influx of Southern Europeans came an influx of Eastern Europeans. For example, the Hungarians, who some called goulash-eating, paprika-reeking, suicidal whiners. Or the Poles, duck's blood drinking, vodka swilling, clumsy, thick-headed, stubborn, oafish lumps. Around 1900, the Turks were the most despised minority in America. And even today, the Turks are known as curd-killing, heroin-smoking, fez-wearing, pastry-gobbling, and pathologically cruel. Which brings us back to the Spanish conquistadors. Now, if only the Pope had his act together and gotten that 12-step program laid out, man, those Spanish, they wouldn't have been doing all those atrocities. They would have said, human sacrifice? Schwa! Be my guest. I don't care. I'm not going to enable you in any way, but nevertheless, if you want to climb up to the top of a rickety pyramid and smear a temple wall with goat's blood, be my guest. I'm not going to stop you, and just ignore that Mensaderian friar over there. He's a little goofy. He hasn't had any water in 18 hours. Well, in the 1960s, a lot of Americans began questioning the basic assumptions of American history that they were brought up on. For example, that is to say, our treatment of African Americans. Now, African Americans, strictly speaking, weren't immigrants. They were brought here involuntarily in 1619. And Around the time of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln promised them 40 acres and a mule, but of course he died before he could fulfill this promise that he made. But if he had given each of the emancipated slaves 40 acres and a mule, then today we might see something like this. Yo, 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 yo! Hey brother, can I borrow your television station? No, my brother. You must buy your own. Also in the 1960s, Americans began questioning their treatment of the first Americans, Native Americans, or Indians. Many Americans said to themselves, we've broken every treaty we've ever made with these proud people, and what's the result? Indians are poor. They sleep on old army blankets. Indians have got disease from old army blankets. Their filthy teepees smell like gopher shit and old army blankets. They're forced to live on fat dogs and palomino ponies and old army blankets. Why? They weren't even born here. They came across on the Bering Strait hundreds of thousands of years ago. Give back those army blankets, you thieving redskins! Is what many Americans said. This presentation has been brought to you by the Eskimos, makers of blubber products for your home, including Blubber Clear, cruelty-free blubber, I can't believe it's not blubber, fat-free blubber, free-range blubber, My Little Blubber, Country Time Blubber, Pickup Blubber, Mighty Morphin Power Blubber, Teenage Mutant Ninja Blubber, new Blub and Blubber, and all-new Nazi-free blubber. I am the Wrong Hero, and I hope you have found this presentation amusing. If you have not found it amusing, I hope at the very least you have found it instructive. And if you have found it neither amusing nor instructive, then I'd like to thank you very much for not hurting me or my friends. Good night. Upstairs are hectic in preparation for a show. I'm Francis DiMenno, and the tape you just saw dates from, about, let's see, close to 6 years ago. Wow, has it been that long? Yes, it has. And the Middle East has changed quite a bit, and yet the upstairs still remains the same smoky dive that we all remember so fondly back when the place first got its start. And, well, not much has changed for the upstairs except the blues gym has become a reggae jam, and the Wednesday evening open mic has become a Saturday afternoon comedy show, and the place has gone through infinite permutations throughout. And so I thought in this next half hour or so, I would, as a general introduction to this series of tapes that we will be shooting, or actually editing, that you'll be seeing over the next, I'm not very good with these figures in my head, I guess the next 20 weeks or so, on Cafe Cabaret and Noise Party. These next 6 months or so, you'll be seeing footage from 1988, 1989, and a few shows from 1990 as well. The whole reason these tapes even exist is due to the work of one man who ought to be credited here today, and his name is Tom Blue. His actual name is Tom Newell, but he preferred to be, yeah, you know Tom, is he still around?
I think he left the country.
Yeah, he left the country for reasons unknown. He lost his driver's license, and well, you know, once that happens, you're not even you're a non-person in this country. You're not even a real citizen. You don't have your national ID card. So yeah, he left the country. I'll bet he's in Spain, or maybe he's off the coast of Africa. Two places he was very fond of back when I knew him well. Anyway, yeah, what I used to do was, this was part of a project that the then House Booker, Billy Ruane, set into motion. As some of you might be aware, Billy Ruane opened this room up in January of 1988 for music. Heretofore, for about maybe 10 or 15 years previous, that's right, great, good ballpark estimate, 10 or 15 years, there had been music, but it was basically Arabic music and Greek music. It was Billy Ruane, in collaboration with Roger and Sue Miller, who had the idea of actually hosting rock and roll shows, but of course not your standard arena rock type shows, more or less, I don't know, artsy-fartsy type stuff. I guess the corollary to it is AS220 down in Providence today. They are now doing what the Middle East was doing back in 1988, which is not, of course, to say that they are like behind us by 6 years, but let's just say that they're carrying on the same tradition. And to a certain degree, upstairs in the Middle East, they are also carrying on that tradition of giving bands that are just starting out, which have something a little unusual to offer, a place to perform, a venue, so to speak. So Billy Ruane decided to document the shows. Initially, he hired an audio person to do tape recordings, and before too long, he had the somewhat brilliant idea of hiring people to do videotapes of the shows. And with that in mind, he had Tom Blue. Back then, there were only a few people who even owned video cameras, strange to say. Now, of course, 20% of the American population owns them, but of course they keep them in their closet until, you know, the baby's first confirmation and things like that. They only crack it out for special occasions. But Tom Blue was a professional videographer, and so Billy Ruane had him come in and videotape some shows, and then he had the idea that we might want to videotape these open mics. So with that in mind, we hired Tom Blue to do so. Basically, we charged a fee at the door back then, and the money went to the then host, Jay Gaggs, and anything that was left over, Tom Blue got. So Tom Blue shot these tapes on a shoestring, and, you know, he wasn't always very punctilious about close-ups and focusing and whatnot. But then again, looking over some of these tapes, I am surprised at the high quality of many of them. Some of them, of course, that you'll be seeing in the next dozens of weeks will be copies, and so the audio quality and the pictorial quality will not be of the same high standard as a master. However, in many cases, these are the only extant versions of the shows. I'm beginning to sound like an archivist here, as though they are like the Dead Sea Scrolls or something. And so we are faced with the alternative of either not showing them at all or showing them in somewhat grainy versions. Well, let's just say that it's better than shooting it directly off the television, as from time to time I have been forced to do. So anyway, Jeffrey Gagnon was the first host of this show, and he started at a place called the 1369 Jazz Club in Inman Square in Cambridge. Maybe I should move around a little bit more. This talking head format is getting to be a drag. Okay, I love a parade. Oh, okay, now it's Paul Simon with his big operatic hit. I am just a poor boy. We walked off to look for America. You know, Luciano Pavarotti laughing on the bus. Playing games with the faces. She said the man in the gabardine suit was a spy. Well, okay, so I jazzed it up a little bit. Now it's back to the boring old documentation that you are presumably watching this televisions that have been blown to pieces with a .45. So Jeffrey Gagnon, who was, I should say, a local man about town who is now settled in San Francisco, the only place where if you're a real weirdo, nobody will notice, because everybody in San Francisco is more or less, so it seems, an exile from somewhere else. Oh, he was too weird for Patuxent, but he fits right in with the San Francisco crowd. Yeah, oh boy, I was walking down Broadway in Cambridge and I noticed, much to my dismay, that the Broadway market was gone and a Starbucks coffee shop was there in its stead. And I smacked my head and said, ay, 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 what happened to that nice old man who had that nice little grocery store? One time I was working in that nice little grocery store trying to get people to sign petitions so that they could put an automatic telling machine in the market. And who should walk by but my old drama teacher? Don't interrupt me. And, oh, okay, that's fine. Interrupt me all you want.
Thank you.
But, hey, good to see you, Cecil. We will, in fact, be showing Cecil's first anniversary reggae show in subsequent weeks on this footage that you'll be seeing on Cafe Cabaret Noise Party. We will be showing little bits and pieces, so whenever we have some tape left over at the end of the segment, we will be showing you some of these reggae jam highlights. Anyway, I was in the old Broadway market, and who should walk by with my old playwriting teacher, Bill Alfred. To what state has this poor, unfortunate, former, very brilliant student of mine fallen? He's working at a temporary job at $4.25 an hour, humiliating, degrading himself. Well, anyway, what an incredible sidetrack. Jeffrey Gagnon was, in fact, the host of the open mic at the 1369 Jazz Club, which he called the Big Black Book. A great many of these shows that you'll be seeing over the next several weeks will, in fact, be the Big Black Book. Somewhere around the middle of 1989, Jeffrey Gagnon quit, although I'm getting a little bit ahead of my story, and it became Francis DiMenno's Cafe Cabaret, or FSAD's Cafe Cabaret, as it was popularly known by myself, if by nobody else. Jeffrey Gagnon started this open mic in, I think it was March 15th, 1988. And there are one or two videos of those shows, however, they're not available to me. If anybody out there happens to be watching and knows the whereabouts of these shows, I'd be very interested to have a copy of one of those videos. But of course, when people ask me for copies of my videos, I say, I don't have time for this. I'm a busy man, with no time to be sick, let alone make videos for you. But, besides, I don't have the equipment. What do you want from me? I'm making like $50,000 a year. I can invest in this expensive equipment. Yvonne Illich, he put it down in Deschooling Society. He said, access to tools. So if somebody would like to give me a high-quality dubbing deck, I'll make you as many copies as you like. Otherwise, forget it, Jack. I'm a busy man. So anyway, actually, I'm a sick man with no time to be busy. Yeah, I wish this were all. I wish I could just stop talking, but I haven't. As my uncle used to say, we were working on his backyard, which was at an approximate 70-degree angle up a hill. Keep working, boys. You've barely scratched the surface. And it's like, gee, Uncle Bob is a witty man. Yes, sir. He used to also say, now you're cooking with gas. And my cousin Bob would say, Dad, you idiot! But Jeffrey Gagnon started the 1369 Jazz Club open mic. It was on Tuesday nights from about 6 p.m. till around 8 p.m. Then they had a band come in. Well, 1369 closed down in August of 1988, and so with some exhortation, I managed to get Jeffrey to move it over here at half his original salary, and we switched it to Wednesday nights, which back in 1988 were the new band nights, more or less, at the Middle East. When the Middle East first started out, they only had 2 nights of music, and those were Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Thursdays eventually they brought in some folk music from South America, and Fridays were Greek night and Saturdays were Arabic night. But now, of course, the Greeks and Arabs have been relegated to a single once-a-week slot in the basement. No, not in the basement, actually in the bakery, which is every Wednesday night, incidentally. Those of you who are wondering whether we're the only Arabic restaurant in town that offers offers music but not Arabic music. Never fear, we have it in the bakery. Yes, this place has grown quite a bit since 1988. Originally, this was the only room. And then eventually we opened up the bakery. And initially we didn't have musical offerings in the bakery, but back around 1991, we did in fact begin offering that sort of thing. And shortly thereafter, we also opened up the downstairs venue, which originally had a seating capacity of 325. Now it's more like 450 since we got a zoning variance from the nice people over at the Cambridge Housing Board. Thank you, Mr. Ken Reeves. Boy, you know, this whole rent control thing's coming up now. I'm digressing again. And my former roommate, Andrew Morvay, who still lives in a rent-controlled apartment, said, you know, Ken Reeves isn't helping anybody by being condescending to the Boston City Council. And, you know, but anyway, thank you, Ken Reeves, for helping us get this zoning variance and for being such a good friend of the Middle East. Jeffrey moved it over here in August of 1988. And the first thing that came up was, how come you're not paying me $60 like the other guy was? Well, the other guy's out of business now. Maybe it was because he was paying bums like you $60 to do a 2-hour show. You know, I'm a supreme artist. I ought to be getting $100 an hour for doing this show. Yeah, well, if you had been a basketball player, then maybe you'd be getting $100 per minute, but you're not and you won't, so there. And so we managed to get Jeffrey at bargain basement rates. Now, you know, I was the person who collected the money at the door, and as you will note increasingly frequently in the weeks to come, I was also one of the co-hosts. Maybe I should talk a little bit about how totally venal and despicable and corruptly I behaved during the course of the original open mic at the Middle East. I would never let an opportunity to jump up on stage and say something go by, much like today, as a matter of fact. Maybe it was because I thought, gee, this is my only chance at fame. Hello, are you here for the open mic? Yeah. Well, and the beat goes on. We got 4 people here for the open mic. And so, as you can see, in the midst of death, we are in life. Or in the midst of life, we are in death. It depends on how well these performers do today. Yeah, well, I'll digress just a little bit more. Guys, ladies, isn't it tough? You get up there, you give them your best stuff. It killed over at, you know, Joe Schmendrick's coffee house, and now I'm bombing. I'm down the toilet. I'm sucking. You know, when you suck, you're going down the toilet, and when you're great, you're killing them. All this violence. Can't we have harmless comedy about little bunny rabbits and baby chicks and stuff? Chocolate rabbits and chocolate crucifixion scenes where you bite Pontius Pilate's head off. And take that, you know. You sacrificed our Lord. You know. So, well, Jeffrey Gagnon wasn't very pleased at the prospect of working like a slave for peanuts, which seems to be endemic to working in the music and comedy business. You work like a slave for peanuts. Shut up! We're going to replace you with a circus element. You know, you'll work 50 times harder for fewer peanuts. We're going to replace you comedians with an automatic teller machine. He's not very funny, but he works 24 hours a day and only costs $21,000 a year. You work 2 hours a day and you cost us, $5,000 a year. Doesn't add up, you know. So that's what's happening in the comedy. It's becoming increasingly mechanical to a certain degree. Like, hey, Jerry Seinfeld. I can teach anybody to be a comedian. All you gotta do is make them take a class in logic and then have them screw it up. Yeah, that's what comedy is. All these comics, you know, once they get successful, they think they have carte blanche to pontificate about what comedy is. But the very nature of comedy precludes any definitive statement as to what comedy is, including this one, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I suppose you could, Dick Van Dyke played a down man in the Dick Van Dyke Show. You know, Dick Van Dyke's son was ashamed of him because he was a mere joke writer. So one day he appears at Show and Tell and says, I'll tell you what comedy is, and he takes a pratfall, breaks his tailbone, has to take a couple of stiff drinks afterwards, becomes an alcoholic. But we know the rest of that story. And, you know, he writes down on the blackboard, as I recall, comedy is the unexpected unexpected. I guess that's about the best definition of comedy I've heard in quite some time. Comedy is the unexpected. Yeah, now that's funny, man. He dropped the mic. Well, that's hilarious. Whoa, ho, ho, ho. Yeah, there's nothing worse than people who are pretending to laugh because they feel sorry for you. Stop it, you guys. I know what you're doing. I did that one time. It was at the Holy City Zoo in San Francisco. There was a woman comedian, and she wasn't doing very well. She was saying stuff like, stuff from her life that she thought was a joke, but it was actually just a somewhat amusing and winsome anecdote about, my roommates. One way to really stop smoking is to move in with a bunch of people who don't smoke. That'll make you really stop smoking. Where's the laughs, What the fuck, man? I'm up here bleeding, dying, pouring out my heart to you, and you're not laughing, damn you! Anyway, this is a really long digression. Jeffrey Gagnon was really open to comedy. He had something of the raconteur about him. This big, bloated, bulging bully boy. Sort of, I don't know, he even said he had gone to Stitches and done his act and gone over very well. Well, he was perhaps, some would say, an indifferent vocalist and not a particularly technically skilled guitarist either. But he did have a knack for improvisation and coming up with the melody right there. He knew his instrument very well, and you could give him a sheet of lyrics and he would improvise the song. He would improvise the chords, the structure, the chorus. He would add words, he would subtract words. He had a real talent for doing that. And as you'll be seeing on these tapes over the next few months or several months, depending on how you define few and several. Is few, is for a few or several? See? We don't know. These are one of those Eleusinian mysteries referred to in St. Augustine's City of God that we will never be able to thoroughly elucidate. Anyway, over the next several months, you will be seeing Jeffrey Gagnon as he attempts to create songs out of thin air. And that's what comedy is at its best. There I go again, defining comedy. Hi, I'm Bill Seinfeld. It's like, what about those pesky neighbors of mine? They don't eat my pudding pops. Especially not Kramer. So, that's the nice thing about comedy is that you can write something at, say, 11:30 a.m. on Saturday and come over here and perform it at, it's 1:30 now, let's say 1:45 on a Saturday. And it's great, because when you're a playwright, hey, how you doing, Nabil? Good to see you. Now, if it weren't for this guy, we wouldn't have this incredibly rare archival footage, nor would I be shooting this show in the present tense. So, hey guys, I don't have to do this, except maybe once a day, but we could have a hand for the odor of the throat. Come on. That'll buy me a few extra weeks. Good old Nabil. Nabil Sater and Joseph Sater, I neglected to mention them up until now, but they were the persons who ran this restaurant and gave Billy Ruane his head of steam. Some will say they were insane to do so because Billy was kind of crazy, as you will see in the months to come, as occasionally Mr. Ruane will make his presence known when he doesn't like something that's going on. The very last tape in this series, which is number 57, is one in which Billy Ruane throws me off the stage. It is, in fact, the final tape in the series for a very good reason. After that time, the open mic went into hiatus for about a month or so, and somebody new took it over. We did show that footage of somebody new doing the open mic. I wish I could remember his name. Ray McNeese did the open mic for a month. But I still appeared. You see, I still managed to get my leering, mugging face on the tape, even though I was no longer running it. I was still a door person, you see. In fact, that's sort of the function I serve even today. On my resume, of course, you know what it says. Staff management liaison, media consultant. He's a doorman. He's a glorified bouncer. give him a hypodermic needle full of adrenaline and just wind him up and set him loose for 3 hours. That's his job, you know. So that's right, enough bad coffee to float a battleship. And that's a good thing about this place. You won't starve, you know. I mean, it's a restaurant and it's a coffee house, so if you want to be nervous all the time, this is the place to work. And gee, I've almost used up all the time I had allotted to this sensitive, introspective rundown of the history of the footage that you are going to see. Well, Jeffrey was a sensitive person in many respects, and he always let performers do as long as they wanted within the constraints that he had to work with, which initially was about 2 hours. Some of the shows are in fact 90 minutes long, some of them run as long as 2 hours and 20 minutes. And of course, since a standard video cassette tape is 2 hours in length, I am forced to pad some of the footage. But never fear, I'm only selecting the very best padding for your viewing pleasure over the succeeding several months. If this sounds a bit like a valedictory, forget it. I don't even know what the word means, nor do I really know how to pronounce it, or whether I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, or whatever. Well, you know, the problem with this place is if you're an alcoholic, forget it. You'll be dead in 3 years. Your liver will swell up to the size of a balloon, and they'll be carting you out of here with a sheet over your head. And I had to stop drinking for that very reason. Unlimited access to all the pistachia and Courvoisier you can drink is not conducive to creativity. I recall one time sitting at the door, smoking a cigarette, drinking a pitcher of beer, and some old college chums of mine came by and said, "Look at him, he's drunk!" You know, "Oh my God, my mother didn't raise me for this world, you know, this crazy, crazy world." Gee, what would Mom say if she saw me now? "Frankie, Frankie, you know, you never call, you never write," that sort of thing. Sorry, Mom, I will call and write. Honest, I will. She's off in Colorado now. My dad. "What's wrong with you? I never call, I never write. You never hear from me. What's wrong with you?" You know, that's the way my dad is. You know, he's just like, he'll go 3 or 4 years without calling or anything. He's just like, "Well, if you don't call me, I know you're all right." Gee, that saves you on the phone bills, doesn't it, Pops? You know, "Call me if you're in jail, but don't think I'm going to come and get you out." You know, that sort of thing. One time I was going down south to Atlanta, and he gave me this card that said, "Friend of the Deputy Sheriff of Allegheny County, Pittsburgh." Like, that's going to do me a lot of good if I get thrown in jail. "Oh, Northerner, huh? Sweet! You know, I'm going to make him squeal like a pig," you know, that sort of deal. You know, like, thanks, Dad, but no thanks. Actually, I did get arrested down in Georgia years later, and I did tell him that my father was the Deputy Sheriff of Pittsburgh. Isn't that great? The Deputy Sheriff of Pittsburgh. Woo-wee! Better leave this boy alone. Here you go, cake, ice cream, caviar, because your dad is a policeman. You know, actually, I don't think policemen they don't really like it when a policeman's son gets into trouble. It puts him in a difficult moral dilemma. Just hit him around the kidneys where it won't show, you know? Don't crack his head open. We wouldn't want his daddy being steamed up. But, well, actually, I can't say that they mistreated me down in Georgia, although it was kind of frightening. Actually, I became a holding cell lawyer. I didn't have the wherewithal to become a penitentiary lawyer or a jailhouse lawyer. So what I did was I got on the phone and I helped people get bail bondsmen. Bail bondsmen, which I myself couldn't get since I lived 2,000 miles away. You know, what bail bondsman in his right mind would, like, guarantee bail to somebody? "I'm saying, see, I'm out of here, Pops, but I forfeit $500. Hey, that's your problem, not mine. But $500 down here is a year's salary for me." You know, sorry, pal. Yes, in fact, this whole jailhouse experience is what led Jeffrey Gagnon to write what was perhaps one of the greatest collaborations we ever did together, the song "Fight the Cops," which, when it was initially performed at the 1369, in the middle of the song, 3 cop magnified and made into a stereotype. For example, the human trait of curiosity, become a reporter. The human trait of authoritarianism, become a policeman. You know, so policemen are just basically there because there's a demand for them. And they're doing a job just like everybody else, like, you know, just like the SS and whatnot. I mean, no. I really don't want to get into this because, after all, my dad is a deputy sheriff of Allegheny County. No, policemen are okay. It's those damn firemen that we got to do something about. Yeah, really, nobody really complains about firemen that much. And that's what policemen do, except they're not putting out actual fires, they're putting out emotional fires. Now remember, if you die, the person that's going to notify your family is probably going to be some policeman. So remember that, and give the cop a smile, and he'll wonder what you're up to and follow you down the street and ask for some ID. If you don't have it, you'll be in trouble. Can I see some ID? No, but you see some ego. You know, ho, 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 ho. So, I am running rapidly out of time, so I better get to the gist of this presentation, which is, Jeffrey Gagnon, he got tired of doing it, and I sort of forced him out. You know, I said, well, if you don't want to do it, I'm not going to pay you anymore, and this and that. So he left. I took it over for a while. He came back. We did it together for a while. You know, and then he left again. And I've been doing it ever since in one permutation or another. Initially, as you've seen on the footage that you just witnessed, as well as the footage which will be witnessed in the weeks to come, this was an open mic. Lots of folk musicians. You know, I mean, I don't want to sound bitter, but folk music is like the one genre which is every bit as oppressive as the injustices it is supposedly attempting to eradicate. Okay? So that's what I have to say about folk music. And blues! Don't get me started about blues. You know, I was 22. I used to feel sorry for myself. I used to smoke unfiltered cigarettes and drink whiskey. You know, that's all very well and good, but when you get to be about 40, it gets a little bit old, you know? So, but I love the blues as long as there's other people doing it, and I don't have to have any real part of it. I mean, I don't want to sit in the club and actually hear somebody screaming their lungs out about, you know, the Red Cross store, they give you some cans of corn and some cans of tripe, and I ain't going there no more. You know, singing about injustices that happened 50 years ago, and they're still bitching about it, you know? Like, but I love the blues. Little boy, wiggle. Yeah, I love to woo my girlfriend with the blues. You can sell your cotton, you won't get half a cent, Lordy. You know, she loves that, you know. It's like, don't sing. I can tell she loves it because that's what she says. My lady friend, my fiancée, my inamorata. Sorry, I didn't intend to refer to her as a girl. A girl, you're a girl. Hey, girlie. What are you doing, huh, girlie? Well, that's about all the time I have for this, so I didn't cover everything that I wanted to, but I think perhaps I've said a little bit more than I might have otherwise, or perhaps even should have. And so I am hoping that if you are still tuning in, that you will tune in to the show every Monday and Wednesday, and check out some of the things that went on here at the Middle East Cafe every Wednesday night. And as always, thank you for viewing. My name is Francis DiMenno, and we're going to have the comedians like applaud, even though what I'm saying has no direct bearing on them. Go ahead, let's have some applause. Yeah. All right, I'm Francis DiMenno, and tune in.
This is the improvisatory segment of the show, not everything we do Detroit.
A gynecologist in Detroit. That sounds pretty promising. It's like no Alaska. Great. Well, let's see. That would be more challenging. Maybe a gynecologist transferred from Detroit to Nome, Alaska. Well, shit, I get sick and tired of examining all them oozy, running, separating, pus-filled sores down in Detroit, so I finally made the big move to Nome, Alaska. But there's a whole other set of problems. My fingers get damn cold. Every day, you know, I'm the only black dude here. Well, what's the thing? What am I supposed to do? Go out with the Eskimo chicks or something, man? I don't know. I'm really missing out. I don't know why I ever decided to go up to Nome, Alaska, except, well, I got a little scrape back in Detroit. I treated somebody. I used my own special treatment. I call it Dr. Love's treatment. And they ran me out of town. So I was stuck in a stinking, miserable iceberg at the tip of the Earth's surface. Listen, I think those whales got troubles. Those stinking whales, I tell you, they got more pals than you and me do. I'll say that. I mean, they got helicopters, they got icebreakers, they got everything to try to rescue them. And who's rescuing us, man? Especially gynecologists who have to go to Nome, Alaska because they got in a little trouble with an underage teenage girl. Jeez. I don't know. Smile when you say that. Anyway, thanks. I don't want to talk much like a black guy. I've been living up here with the fucking gray cat so long. You know, my brain center's frozen along with everything else. So anyway, thanks. Boy, I'll tell you, the small town I came from, it sure was small. How small was it, you might want to know? Let me tell you about the amusement park we had. It was a small amusement park, all right? The boat ride was a ditch. It doubled as a hog trough during the off-season. You always see these watermelon flying, some rimes floating by you around. The Ferris wheel was so small that it was powered by a large, sweating St. Bernard dog. And well, the roller coaster ran on roller skates. What more can I say except to add that they were too cheap to hire a full-time clown, so you never put a lampshade over his head. You know, I'd like to have a job that I get paid to sign my name. I think of all the employment prospects which stretch before me like endless vista, because, you know, in America, a young man with talent, tact, determination can do anything and go anywhere. Of all the jobs that I can have, I think I'd like to have a job signing my own name. I mean, Ronald Reagan has the job now, so maybe in a few years I should get it. I don't know. Well, the thing is, what would your, would you get unemployment benefits every time you got writer's tramp? I'm sorry, boss. Can't come into work for me. You know, my uncle, when I was about 18, my uncle, John, oh God, I can't keep them all straight. I believe it was my Uncle John, but it might have been my Uncle Jim, possibly it was my Uncle Joe. I think it was my Uncle Joe. He gave me this book, and I was at his capacious library. The most up-to-date volume was the Gulag Archipelago, Part 1. And he said, I'd like you to read this book, Matthew, because it's really changed the whole character of my life. I took a look at it. It was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Well, I took my uncle's sage advice and I read it. And it really changed my life. In fact, it changed my life for an entire week. Then I went back to bullying and intimidation, just for a change of pace. I have a friend who works at this magazine, or used to, called California Farmer, and he got fired because he wouldn't say that it was okay to, you know, bust unions down in Chavez, Cedar Chavez, United Farm Workers. Well, that's all beside the point, but he said that the two favorite foods of cockroaches are beer and dog food, which is probably why one reason they're addicted to Outlast Us and well, you know, I take my beer cans back to the deposit storage area, and the woman, she does a triple kick. She says, I ain't taking these. really nice, Rush. He was so nice that he was visiting all of his down and out silverfish friends. He brought a paper bag with a grease spot on it, you know, it sounded his goodwill. You hear how I always talk about senseless violence? But for a second, what's the alternative? Sensible violence? Don't be gonna still send people. I don't know. I was wondering about this. What is a day in the life of a rat like? You know, rats, those vermin that aren't mice. I guess they're the male versions of mice, and mice are female rats and vice versa. You know. Anyway, day in the life of a rat.
Oh, these fleas are killing me. Just up the line, spread some bubonic plague.
Punches the I had a marketing scheme. You know, this thing about crack, the highly addictive disposable form of cocaine. I was thinking if they ever did market on a mass scale, they might even have a very little jingle to distract you from the fact that it makes people go insane. Like, I don't know, Applejack crack, a jack a day keeps the bullies away, keeps everybody away. I was thinking also about Halloween. You know, what could be more perfect than to combine crack with Halloween? And you could have a crack-o-lantern which has no nose, of course. It would run into your front room and set fire to your house with a candle in its head. You know, the whole time smoking crack, of course. They asked Bush the Gary Hart question finally. And you know what the Gary Hart question is? Have you ever committed adultery? And have you ever had any extramarital affairs, Vice President Bush? Hey, I haven't even had an affair with my wife, you know. I like to tell a diverting little story. Originally it was a Scottish man, right? But let's change it to George Bush just for fun. George Bush gets onto a trolley, and the trolley conductor, who here represents Congress, asks him for 10 cents to go towards social programs for the needy. George, who has a valise stuck to the rim with money, refuses to give him 10 cents. He goes to the middle of the trolley. And then the conductor becomes incensed, and he goes to the middle of the trolley and starts wrestling with George Bush, demanding the 10 cents for social programs. And in the melee, the valise, which was in George Bush's hands, gets thrown out the window and lands in a river. And George says, "You scoundrel! There goes my Pentagon defense appropriations." Anyway, wow, that's a great way to end the show. Anyway, if I can think of something clever and witty and diverting, I would, but I can't. So anyway, God bless you all. Thank you very much. It's fallen upon me to introduce the next comment. Oh, wait a minute. Before I do that, though, a little bit of rhetoric. This year we have a choice between a dark horse and a horse's ass. Between a man who says he wouldn't holler boo if his wife were raped, and a man who says, let him eat pork rinds. Between a man who wants to borrow credibility with rhetoric and one who wants to buy it with bombs. Between a party which tells us the party's over and a party which never parties at all. It's like a mechanical snuffling mole versus a man whose forehead resembles a dead, incandescent bulb, which casts a similar amount of light. Or, to borrow a scrap from Captain Beefheart's book, a choice between a man with a porcupine hat and an atomic whoopee cushion. Anyway, I'd like to introduce the next comic. It's John Meekson. He's making his stage premiere at Amelia. It's not a stage premiere, it's a premiere here at Amelia. So give them all a nice round of applause. I actually try to do something impromptu, and that is write a sub-circle mini biography with your help. See, it's the audience participatory segment. One of you gives me an occupation, and the other gives me a geographic locality somewhere in the continental United States, please. Does anybody have an occupation? President. And does anybody have a Nebraska? Well, I think I'll take this opportunity to do something
which I've actually prepared, so it's not going to be off the cuff, but I'll do it. It's an old man, the oldest man in the world, reminiscing in the year 2060 about electoral politics in the 20th century.
I remember the good old days. Sure do. But I don't recall them in any detail. I was in the big war. You know, the one between George Bush and the rest of the world. Well, as we all know, the score came out CIA 1, World 0. Yeah. Seems I remember back in the 70s, CIA couldn't even tie their own shoelaces. Now there are no shoelaces. Everybody uses Velcro, diapers, baseball caps. Of course, you know, the president, he outlawed a lot of things. Jelly beans, the word nonsense, and unleaded gasoline. And you know, the nice thing about the elections back in '88 was that politics was still a spectator sport. You know, there was still this weird, widespread belief that there were two electoral parties. That's what I seem to recall anyway. You know, when they came out with those new qualifications for voting, there was an awful lot of fuss at first. And not everybody had a cyclotron. And there were lots of angry people sitting on them uranium bombs, especially in Fernald, Ohio. Me, I never much minded. Me, I still respect that flag. God bless that flag and all 152 of her stars. And the little crescent moon's a nice touch, too. Of course, you know, it's easy for me to talk. I'm one of them fellers that's never once gotten hit by fallen space debris. Now, not too many folks can say that. And you know, it's funny, but somehow through all the changes, the space debris, the wild dogs, the Cabbage Patch riots in 1985, was it 85? I can't remember. Through all them changes, I could still keep my sense of humor. You know, the only thing that didn't change was that big computer they had back in Washington, D.C. It was running things. Of course, there was a bit of a ruckus when they found out that Fort Knox was a hologram. Then it turns out Buckingham Palace was a computer-enhanced image. And there was a big foo-for-all when it came out that California was just a movie. And the real California fell into the Pacific crater ages ago. They were even thinking of taking a star off the flag, but then they landed on Venus. I used to watch that Star Trek show. You know, it's really quaint the way they used to actually send real human beings up in them rockets. Why, any darn school kid could have told you that 5 times out of 6 those darn things would just blow up right under you. Well, when we landed on Venus, all through the land was a new spirit of jingoistic patriotism. And when the robot shuttle took that picture of God, that put the icing on the cake, brother. Next year they got one in Keller, and that's all she wrote. Now here's a story they used to tell. George Bush was in the insane asylum, and he was saying, "I hate America, I hate America." Then the doctors couldn't figure out why he was saying, "I hate America." Well, then one of them ups and says, "Listen to what he's really saying." So they listen up good, and here's what he really says. He's really saying, "I hate America, I hate America." I remember when they cut off those Social Security benefits. Wouldn't you know it, just when I turned 65, one week I was living off smoked salmon and caviar, and the next week it was baked beans and knickerbocker. Well, I'll tell you, I don't like being interviewed by no robot. Nothing personal there, it's just that robots never get tired, and I do. So let's put this one to bed, because I've already said enough. Matter of fact, I already said too much if that our digital menu of the euthanasia options is any indication. So give me my last uphill and go bother the next oldest man in the world. Thank you. Performer, I'd like to introduce Diane Lake, who unfortunately isn't here. Standing ovation. Come on. Fantastic. No bullshit. It's not on. What do you mean it's not on? Somebody takes it all. Oh my God. Hey, you. Yeah, you. I'm talking to you. Yeah. This is my job, all right? Shut up. Why you go cook in the kitchen? You're starting to do my lines, Jeff. This isn't a job, it's an adventure. Really, it's a fucking adventure, I'll tell you. Uncle Alfie, can't go wrong. Well, it's the day after the election, and guess what's on the menu? Mock Dukakis soup. I don't know. Did you see Kitty's face at 20 minutes to 11 on television last night? It was like this. It was like this. You know, it was at 20 to 11, which is ironic because that was the odds against Dukakis too. Actually, no, the odds were 7 to 1. That means if you bet $700 on Bush to win, you would make $100. But what a price! I'll tell you. You know, Bush, he ran for president. He wanted to win the presidency in the worst way. Turns out he did. We have a sort of independent faction of secessionists over here. We're not going to pay attention. We're just going to talk among ourselves and swap anecdotes about what it's like being in the music business. Hey, we're going to give some leeway. It's hard getting up here with a guitar. And, I mean, if it were easy, I'd be doing it. You just know that. God, I don't know. Well, anyway, in this election, the people have spoken. Unfortunately, what they have said is, we don't want a voice. God, the small town I come from, how small is it? These guys outnumber the population, There's 4 guys here, and they're having a little discussion among themselves. Hey, maybe they're getting together so they can play a game of diplomacy or something. I don't know. Hey, fellas, sure do hate to bust up your little conversation here, but it's one of the cardinal rules of comedy. Don't talk to someone else's set, even though you are musicians. And I worship you. I do. It's so tough doing what you guys do. Of course you're not making a living, Pete. I'm just a lazy fuck. I just like to sit around the house, smoking cigarettes, watching television, and eating light cereal, alright? I'm a total degenerate. So I don't even pay any attention to these fellas. No, actually, I'm just go on and talk, but just keep it down to a little roar, okay? That's it. Whisper. Pretend like you're in church and you're giggling at the priest. Lamb of God, let's make a job. Okay, the town I come from, it's a really small town. It isn't, Johnny. Thanks, Ed. We had a zoo. It was a really crummy zoo. They didn't have an elephant. They had a trash can made from an elephant's foot. They didn't have a leopard. They had a leopard skin pillbox head on display. A little light shining. They didn't have, they had a moose's head. And on the other side of the wall, they had a moose's ass, of course. They couldn't afford to stock any of the big cats. But they had a cat. And they had a Teddy Ruxpin and a poster of Smokey the Bear. And finally, in the petting zoo, they had 2 teenagers naked in the back of a convertible. I had a mafia parrot. And I didn't know it was a mafia parrot when I bought it, but I found out because the next day, it was his arm, it squealed on the bomb, and the next day there was a little seahorse's head at the bottom of his cage, and a note which said, "Lay off, blabbermouth, signed the mob." The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that there are 27,000 cockroaches found in one apartment. U.S. Department of Agriculture. I don't recall letting these guys in. say, cockroaches are disgusting. They leave their egg cases on the kitchen table. Ugh. What do they say about us? Humans are disgusting. They leave their cars parked in front of supermarkets, you know. Their children are in there. They're sweating in the hot sun and the windows are rolled up. Oh, the doors are opening. They're hatching. You know, these humans are funny. They don't eat regular garbage. They feed on little green scraps of paper. Disgusting. They don't even have any grease spots on them. Ew. I don't know. You know, the other comedians in the comic community, they all say I'm a backbiter. Well, you know, okay, I can live with that. I guess I am a backbiter, but I know that with hard work and determination, I can work my way up to a rabble rouser. You know, I go up to this guy at Stitches on Sunday, and I said, how long do I get? He says, 5 minutes. And I say, well, I'm my own worst enemy, so I ought to get 10 minutes. You know? No, but really, people say I'm my own worst enemy, and I believe them. And that proves it. Really. You know, I'm my own worst enemy, but I'm also an optimist, because I realize what an ineffectual little fool I really am. I heckle myself. Hey, buddy, you're not funny. Get off the fucking stage. Really, and then I listen to myself, and I do. I have a plaque over my head, over my bed, that says, oh, shucks, I ain't much. You know, I gotta find a way to do this on my own worst enemy routine so that people believe that I'm really telling the truth. You're not funny. You're a fraud. Shut up. I threaten myself. I try to run away from myself, but then I realize that I'm trapped. I'm too scared to fight back, so I stand there and I let me beat myself up. But you know, I don't do myself any lasting harm because I fight like a girl anyway. As a matter of fact, I'm going to marry myself and I'll be my own best man. Not only that, I get to sleep with the maid of honor. Also me. You ever heard that expression, wild horses couldn't drag me away? Here's an example. Wild horses couldn't drag Francis off of that fucking stage, you know. No, you know, they say wild horses couldn't drag me away, but what kind of blandishments would wild horses have to offer in order to drag you away?
Hey, buddy, come on with us. All the other apples you can eat.
Shop with Mr. Ed. You know, go on down to the racetrack. We're gonna tear chunks of sod out of the turf. Kick the jockey in the face. You know, and then the wild horse pups. They stand in front of the drugstore with open beers, whinnying at the pretty fillies. You know, Morton Downey Jr. Morton Downey Jr. A natural segue. Wild horses couldn't drive me away. Morton Downey Jr. Oh, God. We came to the conclusion, a friend of mine and myself, I know I only have one friend, but this friend of mine came to the conclusion that really Morton Downey's act, his whole act, is like he's a mean, sober drunk. You know, who would be the anti-Morton Downey? The guy who's tall, sensitive, speaks softly.
Francis.
He's kind. He wears sweaters.
How older?
Getting close. Everybody likes him. Sorry, I disqualified Alan Older. George Bush likes him. Everybody wants to be his friend. Mr. Rogers. Now, what if the anti-Morton Downey met Morton Downey? It's a wonderful day in my neighborhood. Or, can I call you Morton?
Mr. Downey III, you fuss press. It's a lonely day in this stinking neighborhood. Prostitution, pornography, drugs. Listen, you're out of town.
I know who he really is.
No.
You're really Morton Downey Jr., aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. To prove it, I'll take off my tie. Something Morton Downey Jr. would never do. It's the only thing that convinces the viewing public that he is actually a respectable person instead of a mean, low-down rabble rouser. Anyway, I'm still in the middle of this, Jim, so I'll continue. The nice Mr. Rogers had just been handed a rebuff by the mean Morton Downey. That's a nice shirt you're wearing. The most important person in the world is you. Hey, no, shut up. Get your fucking hands off my shirt, you goddamn dick. Hiccups? Put a paper bag over your head, Mr. Johnson. The caucus replaced happy hour. You all know this. Some of you are even victims of this unliked policy. They didn't replace it with anything though, so I think maybe you should replace it with angry hour. And you walk into a bar that features angry hour, there'd be these disgruntled bartenders. Hey, what about them Celtics, eh? I hate sports. Give me a 7 and 7. Hey buddy, whiskey made you smart, you can fucking ice some. How's about a drink, bartender? I'm cutting you off, buddy. You're an alcoholic. And don't come back! I don't know, that was me. So let's get into the people that we're really entitled to be mean about. Our elected officials. George Bush. We always pick the safe candidate, not the brilliant candidate. Unfortunately, in this election, we failed to pick either one. Our elected vice president is now Dan Quayle. You know, I'd rather have Pat Sajak personally. You know, they say that Dan's a dumb guy, but he was on the college ball and his team won. Unfortunately, the other team was a rack of Dunkin' Donuts. Barbara Bush, doesn't she look a little like the illegitimate daughter of the Quaker Oats man? George Bush's voice is that of a frustrated high school principal doing second-rate Clint Eastwood impressions in front of a bunch of equally frustrated schoolmasters who happen to be our congressmen. He came out the day before the election with this controversial statement. I'm in favor of prayer in the schools, or a moment of silent prayer. Well, you know, I agree with him. We need all the prayers we can get, silent or otherwise. Anyway, that's about it for me. You know, the caucus though, he's going to need a new theme song. Long shot, kick the bucket. Well, alright. You've had enough of me, but I'll just leave you with this thought. Opportunity knocks, but it knocks loudest on the nicest doors. Thank you all very much. Fantastic Jim Infantino. Our teacher, man. Like you guys. No, they have a boosting before. What time is that? 6 o'clock. Thank you. This is the segment of the week where I try to write a miniature circle biography. Now, if I could just, let's see, would someone like to pick an occupation, something every day? Him. That's a good one. I haven't had that one yet. And what locality would you suggest? I have to write this with your help. Alaska. No, we already did Alaska. Kent in Philadelphia. Amsterdam. This will be fun. It has to be the continental United States.
Shit, woman! You're supposed to be turning tricks on eating them fucking soft pretzels all day! What the hell you been doing all night? I only got $20 in this here poke. What's the matter, you woman? I'm gonna kick it!
Oh, sorry, mister. Sometimes I have these little flashbacks about life on the street. Well, you know, I'm not a pimp anymore, Seth. I gave it up because it got a little too weird. You know, you get your bottom woman, and then you got to come up with competition for her, and then you get a third woman, and she's always backbiting the other two, so you got to get a fourth woman to balance her off, and then you got to get a fifth woman just to have topping on the cake so you can afford that there Bentley. You know, Rolls Royces, those for the candy ass pimps. Bentleys, all the big pimps drive Bentleys, I'm telling you. And you know, then you get your sixth woman, your eighth woman, your 10th woman. Pretty soon, you got yourself a stable of foxy little whores, and they'll wear you right out. You gotta use the pimp psychology on them, studs. The pimp psychology. You gotta witness something new and different on every day, studs. Keep them in a perpetual state of bafflement. That's what you gotta do, studs. But it was too much for me, keeping track of these 12 women. So I gave it up, and now I got a job
The amazing Francis.
That was Johnny. It sounded good. I found out I was on the railroad tracks. You know, my car was vandalized. Even though I put a sign in the window that said no radio, I came back. There was another sign in the window. All the windows were smashed. There was another sign in the window that said, "Get one." You know, how are all you fine people today? I love seeing you all. Not all you fine people, all you good-looking people can make me forget. I'm not doing so well myself, so I'd like to give you the overture to a famous opera we're all very familiar with. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you all very much. You know, I love live music. I do. You know, they say that people nowadays have a short attention. What was I going to say? I was talking to my nephew. Now, there's an example of a fellow that has a short attention span. He says, "Uncle Dino, how do traffic lights work?" And I said, "They don't. Most of them are on Social Security." Oh, yes, I'm your old friend, you know. I'm feeling really good, you know. I had my fine 5-day vacation. I'm feeling really good, you know. Drying out and detox, yeah, you know, it's really wonderful. Oh, I got to thinking when I was in detox, I was thinking about my career and the people I left behind. My old girlfriend. My old girlfriend. I remember the first thing she ever said to me. She said, "What are you doing digging in all that garbage?" Yes, sir. Well, you know what I said to her? I said, "Little lady, there's no such thing as a lazy woman, just an ugly woman." Actually, I got that the wrong way around. See how drunk I was? Well, you know, my girlfriend, she left me, and now I'm sleeping in a cold, cold bed all by myself. That's because she took the fiberglass insulation with her. Also the window strip. Well. I remember my first brush with stardom. The very first time I was watching Frank Sinatra. And a fellow next to me said, "Attaboy, Frank, you're mediocre." Well, 6 months later, Frank actually spoke to me. It was in an alleyway behind a casino in Atlantic City. And he said, "Next time I'll break your other fucking arm." Yes, that old Frank, I remember it as clear as a bell. Well, most of the function has been restored to my own. And look on my last boss, you know? He said, "Dino, what are we going to do about your drinking? How much longer are we going to be forced to put up with your drinking?" And I said, "I don't know. How patient are you?" That leads to the subject of Uncle Alfie. Oh, Uncle Alfie. I remember the first thing Uncle Alfie ever said to me. And you know, I'll never forget it because Uncle Alfie, you know, the older generation has a lot to teach us. They have a lot of folk wisdom to pass down to us youngins. I remember the first thing Uncle Alfie ever said to me.
Someone's gonna be shit out of luck if I don't get a fucking drink up here. Pronto! Move it!
You know, I love old Uncle Alfie. You know, we kids, we used to lay on the sofa bed in the living room and the TV room. We'd be giggling and laughing because, there'd go old Uncle Alfie. He'd be wearing old granddad's floppy pajamas. He'd be trying to walk up the steps.
I did it! Oh my way!
Yeah, Uncle Alfie. Uncle Alfie, you was a barrel of laughs. Uncle Alfie, you know, he had a little bit of a persecution complex. He used to say,
"What's the matter? Don't you like my shanty Irish friends?"
well, you know, he was really drunk because he was a Sicilian. You know, Uncle Alfie, you know, he got a job as a waiter at a fancy Italian restaurant. I'll tell you, he had a real rapport with his boss. boss. First time I ever went to visit his restaurant, his boss was talking to him, having a friendly little discussion with him in the kitchen.
Drop the pen on his area! I tell you!
And then Uncle Alfie, I'll tell you, he had a real rapport with the customers too.
There's a fly in my soup, waiter.
If you don't like it, get out!
You know, and he really knew how to talk those customers up and get those big tips out of them. You know, he'd say,
Is there garlic in this?
I knew the garlic man. He used to come around our neighborhood in a garlic-covered limousine, passing out garlic to all the little kiddies in the neighborhood. When I was a boy, my father worked like a dog. They kept him on a 3-foot leash.
you know, he was extra good at closing time. Because, you know, he wanted to turn the lights out and clear the tables off. And he'd say,
Finish with your drink yet? Here, let me help you with that. Give me it. Give me that. Go on, get out of here. Get out of this drink.
On the new carpet? You're fired.
There, you're finished. Now get out.
you know, they promoted him. They promoted him to dishwasher. Yes, sir. I was a little kid. I used to go into that kitchen. I used to ask him all sorts of questions like, Uncle Alfie, why are you elbow deep in filth? Yeah, old Uncle Alfie. I'd ask him all sorts of questions because that folk wisdom of his, he'd always come up with the right answer. I'd say, Uncle Alfie, how much does God weigh? And he'd say,
Here's $1. Go out and get yourself a pint of soda pop.
yep, I used to love it. But the best thing of all, watching Uncle Alfie talk to the silverware in the silverware drawer. He's like,
With that can opener grinning at me. That knife and fork menaced by the giant cleaver. That table knife threatened by the wooden spoon.
he'd turn to me and he'd say, here's a napkin. He'd say,
Here's a napkin. Don't ever walk out of the house without a napkin so you can blow your nose.
you know, my parents said that Uncle Alfie set a pretty good example. He said,
That's what you ought to do if you want to end up being a bum for the rest of your life.
I love my music, you know, I really do. From the Rolling Stones to Patsy Cline, from James Brown to Sid Vicious, I love my music. You know, it's the closest I'll ever get to being an actor. Well, my neighborhood next door plays disco at 3 in the morning. I say, please let me be cool, because I love my music. If I can make it here, I can make it anywhere. So here's to you, Central Square, Central Square, Central Square. Thank you all, I love you all.
I think I'll introduce Francis now. Here's our host, Francis.
I'm glad you all can be here today, but thank you, Jeffrey. I'm glad you all can make it, and I'd like to have a little quiet time and dedicate this segment of the show to somebody who can't make it anymore. He can't make it because he passed on. Don't ever say dead. Let's say he departed to a better day.
4:30 this morning, of President in Nashville, Tennessee. The world will always remember him. Always. Snow was a-snowing, wind was a-blowing, when the world said goodbye, Roy. Birds sitting by Elvis up there in heaven, you could hear him sing again. Well, looks like Roy's getting in on the act there. It's good to see all you fine people here today. This place is going to go far, I can just tell. They're going to have to change the name of it. They're going to have to call it something like Tabbouleh City, or maybe the Hummus Hut. But actually, I like to call it Falafel Shack, because that's sort of what it is. I like this restaurant. Uncle Alfie used to work in a restaurant. He used to sing along to the jukebox. He'd sing his own special songs that he himself made up. He'd say, I drink from the tap, I drink from the glass, my stomach is heavy and loaded with gas, but I got a good man, so I really don't care. I got my booze that I ain't gonna share, no, 'cause I got my monkey, I'm a drunkie, lonely drunkie. Here's my name. I don't know why you never went to show me to that. He's really something. I was just a little kid, had a visitor in the restaurant, and I'd ask him all sorts of goofy little kid questions like, Uncle Alfie, why are you elbow deep in filth? And he'd say, see that guy? He's my boss. My boss thinks his shit is chocolate ice cream. That's the problem with this place. Yeah, you can tell that Uncle Alfie really got along with his employer. I remember the first thing his boss ever said to him. You talking about lasagna! I tell you! Well, Uncle Alfie, he liked to give all sorts of advice. He'd say to me, they don't tell you this in no school, youngster, but everyone you meet is no good. All my friends want to give me advice. They always say to me, Elkie, you ought to get a hold of yourself. Well, I'll say one thing about my friends. I'm glad that they're there to remind me that I'm nothing but a no good stinking bummer. I had ambition, sure I did. I wanted to be a champagne drunk. I wanted to be the champagne drunk of all time. If I hit the megabucks, you know what would happen? If I hit the megabucks, my life would be in physical danger. I'm a walking time bomb. Tick, 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 blow it. I can't get loose without my juice. Yeah, well, he had the soul of a poet. 3 glasses of antifreeze, and the rheumatiz is all gone. You can't get a good whiskey sour north of the Mason-Dixon line. It's the government. You know who built this town, youngster, don't you? It was the working man, skipper, and don't you ever forget it. Don't laugh at the Union, kiddo. It's no joke. A working
jokes just as dirty about us as we tell about them. I'll offer you a little bit of advice there, Skipper. A summer romance is best forgotten with the first frost. If I win the megabucks, I'm gonna spend every penny instantly. Instantly. I have a high forehead. I'm a very serious man. Listen here, Chiefy. A gorgeous gal would have to have rocks in her head to get hooked up with a no-good bum like me. You know something? This town stinks. And you know what that smell is? It's the smell of money. My old man never took 1 red cent. That was his. You know where you get the best whiskey, youngster? I'll tell you where you get the best whiskey. All the best whiskey gets sent straight to Washington, D.C. Them jokers sure can slug it on down. I'm going there on the first thing smoking. You better believe it, sure as Christmas I am. Yeah, them jokers down in Washington drink from the crack of dawn to Johnny Carson's monologue. Hey, little buddy, can you keep a secret? You ever notice the president's been acting kind of funny? He walks in his pajamas and he talks that there jibber jabber. He's a Chinaman. I'm gonna go down and throw rocks at his window. Yeah, youngster. If I had your education, let me tell you, youngster, if I had your education, I'd be at the top of the heap.
I'd say to him, but Uncle Alfie, I'm only in the 3rd grade. And he'd say,
Here's $1. Get yourself a jug of fizzy water. Don't ever drink soda pop first thing in the morning, youngster. It'll eat a hole in your stomach. Sure as I'm sitting here instead of waiting on the customers. You're all too fat anyway. Get out of here, you fatzos.
and he had these little jokes he used to play on me. He'd say,
Here, pull my finger. Just for that, I'm gonna take you to the circus.
so Uncle Alfie, he'd take me to the circus. But you know, he just said he was taking me to the circus. He really wanted to go himself. The circus with Uncle Alfie. He used to carry on a running dialogue with the performers.
Hey, sport, that bear looks like my first wife. Better be careful she don't hug you to death.
He used to love the clowns most of all.
Send in the clowns.
Think they're pretty funny, don't you, mister?
He'd lean over to the clowns and he'd say,
Listen, fella. You have a friendly face. Tell me, confidentially, is your heart broken? And another thing, how can a fella get a drink around here? If I don't get a drink, someone's gonna be sure. See that elephant? I'm that elephant. And you know what they say about an elephant, don't you? An elephant never forgets. Give me a rotten peanut and 20 years later, I am a rebel. I even have the Civil War just set.
yeah, Uncle Alfie, he was really something special. Well, Roy, here's to you. Sitting there, the right hand of Elvis Presley. They're just waiting for James Brown so he can come up there and sit at their left hand. Up there,
Okay. Well, I feel like I've been in heaven for this past few minutes, and I'd like to thank you all for your kind attention. I love you all. My extremely talented friend.
Well, we do this every week, and this little lady here is the first to tell you. It's a study circle mini biography. Yes, it's that time again. One of you picks out an occupation, it can be anything, and the other picks out a geographic locality anywhere in the continental United States. And I write a study circle mini biography. Yes, John? Wait a minute now, that's not something a human being can do. Well, shucks, I don't know. He's putting me on. It's all right. The level of interest is like plumbing. Okay. And we have a geographic location
Mons Veneris.
for this putative farm. The Mons Veneris is a part of the human body. You can't.
Oh, that's a location, isn't it?
The Isles of Langer House.
Good place for a plumber, though.
A plumber in Kansas.
Shit. Business sucks. There's a buy of water in this state. What's a fucking plumber gonna do? When I first started doing this job, it was pretty cinchy. You know, all it meant was just sticking your hands into 3 feet of shit at $20 an hour. Hell, I'll stick my hand 6 feet of shit for that kind of dough. Well, the union came in, had to pay my assistants a living wage, and things started going plumb straight to hell in a handbasket after that, studs. Yeah, they think being a plumber is easy. They think being an independent contractor who makes his own hours without worrying in the world. It's not a piece of cake, studs. I mean, come payday, you got so much money, you got money to burn. Your life is a physical danger when you get your pay. I mean, rolling around, big loads, I'll take 20 years off your life, studs. You know, my wife, whenever the sink stops up, you can always count on her to say, you're the plumber, you should know what to do. Well, I don't even know that. I gotta deal with the doctor down the street. Yeah, he takes care of all of my wife's, we all know this, and I clean his toilet every morning. It's a pretty even trade to me. Well, anyways, I think I've said too much. So, thanks, and bye. It was only yesterday, but it seems like years and years ago. You know, Christmas time is a special time, and it's a special time of year when all the special people come to your special house and do all their special things. And we kids, we had a special time. We had our own special songs we used to sing, like, I'll see you here, a gentleman, let nothing you dismay. Our barber shop is open on every Christmas day. And, oh, little cloud of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie. The Lord you squealed on rode you out and left you here to die. And who could forget the childhood classic? Jingle bells, Santa smells 50 miles away. Yes, growing up, you know, my family. We were poor, but we were broke. You know, for Christmas time, our neighborhood, a guy in black leotards used to break into our basement and steal the coal from our stocking. That's how poor we were. You know what, Daddy, I kept on pestering him to give me a pony for Christmas, and I said, Daddy, when are you going to give me that pony? I always wanted. Well, one year I came downstairs in my pajamas with feet in them. Looked for that pony, and all I found was a big pile of horse crap. And my daddy said, son, I gave you a pony
money, but he ran away. But yes, we give our humble presents to each other and to our parents and relatives. And they say, our parents, they say, money doesn't matter. It's the thought that counts. And we say to them, come on, how stupid do you think we are anyway? Yeah, right around Christmas time, we see all our old friends, Frosty the Snowman, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Our favorite Christmas friend of all was Uncle Elton. Hey kids, it's the Candy Man. Oh, the Candy Man, Candy Man, makes the world taste good. So baby, please let me be your old candy man. Yeah, Uncle Elton. You know, every Christmas time, I quit his job at the restaurant for a couple weeks. He loves spreading that Christmas spirit. He get himself a job. He gave himself a job ringing the bell over at the Salvation Army. But we used to love the Christmas cheer he'd spread. Even when he came over to our house, he'd bring us all presents. He'd bring us all $5 gift certificates to Deliver World. Well, we knew how much he wanted them, so we let him have them. You know, he talked to my cousin Teresa, he'd say, hey, good looking, what's got cooking? I got he'd say to her, hey, you want to sit on my lap? Tell me whether you've been naughty or nice. And she'd say, oh, well, I'm 25 years old. And he'd say, what do you think I am? You know, some little kid sitting on my lap. And he'd give us the benefit of his folk wisdom accumulated through 30 years of hard drinking. You kids ain't gonna get shit for Christmas if you don't spray it off. He'd say, when's that Arafat gonna get rid of that stupid fucking scarf of his anyway? Who's he think he is, King Farouk? And he'd recite his traditional poetry. There was once a little bird with a broken wing, couldn't fly and couldn't sing, couldn't fight and couldn't fuck. That poor bird was shallow. That's what someone around here is gonna be if I don't get a fucking drink up here. Pronto. We used to like him best when he get to talking to the mixed nuts in the nut bowl. You cashews, you gotta stick together. There's a lot of sneaky walnuts in the world. They think they got brains. You filberts kissing me up with you almonds there. It was a pretty nice neighborhood you had until that damn peanuts started moving in. Yeah, as I was telling you, you got a job at the Salvation Army. Ring the bell. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, you cheap fuckers. Merry Christmas. I'll jingle your bells, lady. Merry Christmas. I used to hang around and watch them interact with all the little kitties. Mommy, I just saw that Santa Claus coming out of a bar. He says I ain't gonna get no present. Who do you think you are? Shut up and get the fuck out of here, that's why I'm late. And she'd say, well, I knew. Then how did that stinking brat get here? I'd ask him all these sort of dumb little kid questions like, Uncle Elkie, why are you shaking a broken bell and hollering like an idiot? He had a lot of dignity. He may have been down and out, but he had a lot of dignity. He'd say, hey baby, how would you like to sit on my lap? Santa's got a big surprise for you. Merry Christmas. All the rich people get the best presents. Merry Christmas. Fucking tightwad. Why don't they give the dough to people who know what to do with it? Spend every last penny of it on booze. Merry Christmas, you no good cheapskate.
not been drinking. I got a strong need to get behind the wheel of a large automobile. Merry Christmas. What are you looking at? Your shitty made up chocolate ice cream. Merry Christmas.
He's looking to the big pot.
If I find a guy that spits like a quarter, I'll murder him. Merry Christmas, you stingy cocksuckers. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, the apartment store across the street, they hired people to sing Christmas carols. When the blues was working on just right, well, he joined right in.
Chestnuts roasted on open and holy jolly Santa Claus is coming to town.
Yeah, I remember the department store across the street. They were constructing a manger scene. I'll never forget the day Uncle Alfie lost his job as the Salvation Army Santa Claus. It was Christmas Eve. It was really cold. Uncle Alfie, he had a few dozen drinks. And he said to me,
Hey kid, what are them jokers doing over there?
and I said, why, they're putting up the manger scene, Uncle Alfie. And he says,
Hi Jesus, hey, got a 56 so I can buy a bottle of wine. Oh, holy night, the stars above are shining. Everybody,
Uncle Alfie, I'll never forget. And I'll never forget you for your kind attention. Thank you.
And the eagle flies on Friday.
Hello, Francis.
What do we all know? Traditional Christmas carol, perhaps? You see, Katie, what I want you to sing. Oh, come on, tell me, how about, we could, the theme from the Flintstones. We all know that. Come on, ready for the theme from the Flintstones. Flintstones.